Movies are more than entertainment. They're time machines. For anyone who grew up in the 70s and 80s, films weren't just stories on a screen. They were moments that defined a generation. Tonight, we're diving into 10 of the greatest movies of all time, films that shaped culture, sparked imagination. The Godfather, 1972.
Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather wasn't just a film, it was an event.
Adapted from Mario Puzo's novel, it brought audiences into the dark, complicated world of the Corleone family. Marlon Brando's quiet menace as Don Vito, Al Pacino's transformation from innocent war hero to ruthless mob boss. It all felt Shakespearean. When it premiered, people were stunned. Italian Americans saw their stories on screen, while others were shocked by the beauty of such a brutal world. The haunting score, the wedding sequence, the horse's head scene. It became instantly iconic. For audiences of the 70s, The Godfather was more than a gangster movie. It was about loyalty, family, and the cost of power. And 50 years later, it's still regarded as one of the greatest films ever made.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, 1975.
Few films have captured rebellion against authority quite like this one. Jack Nicholson's R.P. McMurphy, a man who fakes insanity to escape prison, finds himself in a mental hospital where Nurse Ratched rules with icy control. What follows is a battle of wills that spoke directly to the 1970s spirit of freedom versus conformity. Audiences connected deeply with McMurphy's fight for dignity and laughter. The supporting cast, Danny DeVito, Christopher Lloyd, added authenticity and heart. And Louise Fletcher's Nurse Ratched became one of cinema's greatest villains, embodying cold, institutional power. The film swept the Oscars, winning all 5 major awards. But more importantly, it gave viewers an unforgettable story about individuality and courage. For people who saw it back then, it was raw, emotional, and unforgettable.
Rocky,
1976. When Rocky hit theaters, nobody expected it to become a cultural phenomenon. Sylvester Stallone was an unknown actor who wrote the script in 3 days and refused to sell it unless he could star it. That gamble paid off. Audiences fell in love with Rocky Balboa, the small-time boxer with a big heart. It wasn't about winning, it was about going the distance. The training montage, the Philadelphia steps, the music, every piece of it became legendary. For working-class audiences, Rocky's story was their story. Someone who refused to give up, no matter the odds. By the time the credits rolled, people weren't just watching Rocky. They were Rocky.
Star Wars,
1977. It's hard to explain just how groundbreaking Star Wars was in 1977. George Lucas took a simple tale of good versus evil and set it in a galaxy far, far away. For audiences used to gritty 70s realism, this was pure wonder. From the opening crawl to the Death Star trench run, everything felt revolutionary. The special effects, the sound design, John Williams's iconic score, this wasn't just a movie, it was an experience. Kids lined up around the block, adults were swept away too. It didn't just create fans, it created a culture. Toys, posters, sequels. Star Wars changed Hollywood forever. For those who saw it in theaters in '77, it wasn't just a movie night. It was a moment they would never forget.
Grease, 1978.
After the epicness of Star Wars, audiences wanted something fun, and they got Grease. John Travolta's Danny and Olivia Newton-John's Sandy turned this 1950s high school musical into one of the most beloved films of all time. The music was irresistible. Summer Nights, You're the One That I Want, Greased Lightning. People left theaters singing, dancing, buying the soundtrack. The film wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural explosion. For anyone who was a teenager in the late 70s, Grease captured the joy, awkwardness, and excitement of youth. Decades later, it still does.
Apocalypse Now, 1979.
Francis Ford Coppola followed The Godfather with one of the boldest war films ever made, Apocalypse Now. Inspired by Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, it took the Vietnam War and turned it into a surreal, haunting nightmare. Marlon Brando as Colonel Kurtz, Martin Sheen as Captain Willard, and Robert Duvall with his unforgettable "I love the smell of napalm in the morning." These performances became legendary. The film's chaotic production nearly destroyed Coppola, but the end result was breathtaking. For audiences, it wasn't just a war film, it was a journey into madness. And for anyone who saw it in the theaters, it was an unforgettable experience of sound, visuals, and sheer emotional force.
Raging Bull, 1980. Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull is considered one of the greatest character studies in cinema history. Robert De Niro transformed himself into boxer Jake LaMotta, showing the brutality of the ring and the self-destruction of a man consumed by jealousy and rage. Shot in stark black and white, the boxing scenes felt raw and violent, while the personal drama cut even deeper. De Niro's performance won him an Oscar, but the real prize was immortality. This role cemented his place as one of the greatest actors of all time. For viewers of the 1980s, Raging Bull wasn't an easy film, but it was unforgettable. A masterpiece that captured both the glory and the tragedy of a life lived on the edge. Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981. Adventure had a new name: Indiana Jones. Steven Spielberg and George Lucas joined forces to create Raiders of the Lost Ark, and audiences fell in love instantly. Harrison Ford's Indy was the perfect mix of brains, brawn, and charm. The boulder chase, the snake pit, the face-melting finale, it was pure movie magic. Unlike the gritty dramas of the 70s, this was fun, fast-paced, and thrilling. For moviegoers, it brought back the spirit of old adventure serials, but with blockbuster energy. To this day, Indiana Jones is one of the most beloved heroes in cinema history. E.T. The Extra-Terrestrial, 1982. Few films have captured the magic of childhood like E.T. Steven Spielberg gave the world a story about a lonely boy and an alien stranded on Earth, and it became one of the most emotional films of the 1980s. The flying bike scene, the glowing finger, E.T. phone home, every moment became part of pop culture. Families watched it together, children cried, and parents remembered what it felt like to believe in wonder. At its core, E.T. is about friendship, love, and letting go. For those who saw it on the big screen, it was a memory they carried for life. Back to the Future, 1985. Finally, no list of great 70s and 80s films would be complete without Back to the Future. Michael J. Fox as Marty McFly, Christopher Lloyd as Doc Brown was the perfect mix of sci-fi, comedy, and heart. The DeLorean, the time travel paradoxes, the Johnny B. Good performance, every piece of it became iconic. Audiences loved the adventure, but also the message. The choices you make today shape the future. It wasn't just a movie. It was lightning in a bottle, and it still feels timeless. These 10 films weren't just entertainment. They were experiences that defined a generation. From the epic storytelling of The Godfather to the pure magic of Back to the Future, they remain unforgettable. Which of these classics is your favorite? And what movie should we revisit next? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys back to cinema's golden era.